Urgent, Stephen Curry makes a strong statement about LeBron James' retirement. Stay until the end to find out everything. But before starting the video, leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any important news from the Lakers. In the vast expanse of the NBA's storied history, few rivalries have ignited the imagination quite like that of Stephen Curry and LeBron James. Their paths, though distinct, converged to create a narrative that transcended the hardwood, captivating fans and redefining the game's landscape. Stephen Curry, the sharpshooting maestro from Davidson College, entered the league with questions about his size and durability. Yet, with each deep three-pointer and dazzling dribble, he silenced doubters, transforming the Golden State Warriors into a juggernaut and revolutionizing basketball with his perimeter prowess. LeBron James, heralded as the chosen one since his high school days, carried the weight of expectations with grace and power. His journey from Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland, and then to Los Angeles was marked by championships, MVPs, and a relentless pursuit of greatness. Their rivalry reached its zenith between 2015 and 2018, as the Warriors and Cavaliers clashed in 4 consecutive NBA Finals. Each series was a chess match of strategies, adjustments, and individual brilliance. Curry's lightning-quick release and off-ball movement contrasted with LeBron's brute strength and court vision, creating a spectacle of contrasting styles. Beyond the statistics and accolades, their battles symbolized a shift in the NBA's power dynamics. Curry's rise challenged the established order, while LeBron's resilience reaffirmed his dominance. Their encounters were not just games, they were cultural events, drawing global attention and sparking debates in barbershops, boardrooms, and beyond. Off the court, mutual respect blossomed. They recognized in each other a shared commitment to excellence, community, and the game's growth. Their interactions, whether in all-star games or Olympic settings, showcased camaraderie forged through competition. As time marched on, the rivalry evolved. Younger stars emerged, and both Curry and LeBron faced new challenges. Yet, their legacies remained intertwined, each pushing the other to new heights, their stories forever linked in the annals of basketball lore. In this chapter, we delve into the genesis of their rivalry, exploring the moments that ignited the fire and set the stage for an era-defining saga. It's a tale of ambition, transformation, and the relentless pursuit of greatness, a spark that illuminated the NBA and inspired a generation. Before they became symbols of their era, Stephen Curry and LeBron James were simply 2 players chasing a dream, from different backgrounds with different expectations, but with the same fire burning within them. LeBron's journey was always public. From the moment he graced the cover of Sports Illustrated as a high school junior, the world watched, waited, and weighed every step he took. There was no room for anonymity, no grace for growth without scrutiny. He was projected to be a savior of a struggling franchise and a beacon for the future of the league. And somehow, impossibly, he lived up to it all, not just with numbers and accolades, but with a leadership style molded by constant visibility and relentless drive. Curry's ascent was subtler but no less remarkable. Undervalued coming into the NBA draft, passed over by bigger market teams, he entered the league with more doubt than hype. His ankle injuries nearly derailed his early seasons. But behind the curtain, Curry was sharpening his skill, honing a rhythm that would eventually break the very foundation of modern basketball strategy. He wasn't just playing the game differently, he was reshaping how it was imagined. As both men grew into their roles, the league began to bend around them. LeBron, with his versatility, capable of dominating any position, set a new standard for what it meant to be an all-around player. He could bully his way to the rim, distribute like a point guard, and defend the perimeter when needed. Meanwhile, Curry's deep-range shooting and lightning-fast releases forced defenses to adapt or collapse. He turned spacing into a weapon and made small ball lineups a blueprint instead of a gamble. Their mutual rise brought inevitable comparisons, not because they played the same way but because they redefined greatness on their own terms. LeBron stood as a symbol of physical dominance, Curry as one of finesse and rhythm. One overwhelmed, the other disoriented. And yet, they both dictated the game's tempo like master composers in rival symphonies. What binds them, more than style or stats, is resilience. Curry overcame constant underestimation to become the face of a basketball revolution. LeBron weathered immense pressure, organizational chaos, and personal sacrifice to become a cultural pillar far beyond basketball. As their teams ascended, Golden State surging with youthful energy and unselfish movement, Cleveland rallying behind LeBron's gravity and resolve, the stage was set for something monumental. It was clear to anyone watching, these two weren't just stars. They were architects of a new era. This chapter in their story isn't just about success, it's about construction. The building of identities, of empires, of legacies. It's about how two men, so different in delivery but aligned in purpose, rose to dominate a generation. Not merely as players, but as symbols of how greatness can take many forms. And as their arcs curved ever closer, fans and analysts alike felt the tension rise. Something unprecedented was brewing. The Titans had risen, and soon they would clash. By the time 2015 arrived, the NBA landscape had shifted, not subtly but with a seismic force. Golden State had become the league's most electrifying act, powered by Stephen Curry's effortless deep shooting and a fluid, team-first philosophy. Cleveland, resurrected by LeBron James's homecoming, had the aura of unfinished business and the will of a man seeking redemption. And as fate would have it, their destinies were now on a direct collision course. The NBA Finals became the battleground, not just for titles, but for supremacy in a shifting basketball universe. In 2015, Curry's Warriors were fresh, fearless, and free-flowing. They played with the joy of kids on a playground, but with deadly precision. LeBron, missing key teammates, carried a staggering burden, performing Herculean feats just to keep Cleveland afloat. Despite his brilliance, the Warriors took the series. It was Curry's first title, and a signal that the league's center of gravity might be changing. But LeBron doesn't fade quietly. 2016 would bring one of the most memorable finals in history. The Warriors, having posted a record-breaking 73-9 regular season, looked invincible. Curry had ascended to back-to-back MVP status, the second coming unanimously. But in a twist that will be replayed for generations, LeBron James led the Cavaliers back from a 3-1 deficit, the only team to ever do so in the finals, delivering Cleveland its first championship in over 5 decades. It was a masterclass in willpower, and in that iconic moment, the chase-down block on Andre Iguodala, LeBron didn't just win a game. He etched a legacy. And yet, the story was far from over. In 2017 and 2018, the rivalry took a new turn. With Kevin Durant's arrival in Golden State, the Warriors formed a near-unbeatable force. Curry, now sharing the spotlight with another generational talent, adapted gracefully. Their style remained beautiful, ruthless, and nearly flawless. LeBron, valiant as ever, carried Cleveland once more into the Lions' den, but the gap had widened. The Warriors won both series convincingly, and though the competitive edge of the rivalry dimmed, its emotional weight never did. Those finals weren't just sporting events. They were chapters in a mythos, each game a verse in a saga sung by millions. The contrast of styles, of mindsets, of journeys, it all added texture to what would become one of the richest player rivalries in league history. Through these clashes, Curry and LeBron gained more than trophies or scars. They gained understanding of themselves, of each other, and of what it meant to carry the game forward. Mutual admiration grew amid the battles, quiet nods replacing words, fierce competition never compromising respect. For Curry, facing LeBron meant facing the standard. For LeBron, battling Curry meant confronting a challenge that wouldn't bend, and might even surpass. This chapter is the heart of their shared legend. It's where myth met reality, and two titans collided under the brightest lights. The stakes were high, the moments unforgettable, and the impact permanent. Because after meeting at the summit, you never return the same. When fans speak of Stephen Curry and LeBron James, they often begin with basketball, the records, the rings, the rivalries. But the true scope of their influence stretches far beyond arenas and box scores. These two transcendent figures didn't just change how the game is played, they redefined what it means to be a professional athlete in the 21st century. Off the hardwood, Curry and LeBron became emblems of modern athlete empowerment, each forging a path that blurred the line between sports, business, and activism. LeBron had long embraced the mantle of responsibility. He opened the I Promise School in his hometown of Akron, providing at-risk children with education, resources, and hope. He founded Spring Hill Company, a media enterprise designed to tell underrepresented stories, blending entertainment with empowerment. And when societal moments demanded it, LeBron never stood silent. He spoke about inequality, injustice, and community, aware of the weight his voice carried. Curry, more reserved in tone but equally powerful in impact, carved his own identity as a thoughtful, values-driven entrepreneur and advocate. He invested in education, helped fund initiatives for underrepresented youth in STEM, and supported causes from clean water access to racial justice. Through unanimous media, he began crafting stories grounded in faith, family, and purpose, stories that reflect the layers behind the smile and the shot. Their off-court rivalry wasn't competitive, it was complementary. Where LeBron often led with boldness and scale, Curry led with intention and subtlety. Together they showed that being more than an athlete wasn't a slogan, it was a blueprint. They also changed the business of sports. LeBron's strategic moves, from controlling his image to assembling teams of trusted advisors, set the stage for a generation of players to own their brands. Curry followed suit, becoming a major player in the tech space, investing in everything from startups to athlete-focused venture funds. Both men turned personal success into community impact and long-term financial stability, not just for themselves but for their families and teams. And they did it all while staying visible, accessible, human. Fans didn't just admire them, they related to them. Curry as the underdog turned icon, LeBron as the prodigy who bore pressure and delivered. Their stories weren't perfect, but they were authentic, and authenticity resonated. As role models, they shaped a new kind of heroism. Not just about what you do under pressure, but how you live with purpose. The respect between them deepened in this space. They understood that legacy isn't built solely in finals wins or MVP trophies. It's constructed in classrooms funded, communities uplifted, stories told, and young lives changed. In a world often quick to divide, Curry and LeBron reminded us that greatness doesn't have to compete. It can collaborate. It can coexist. It can inspire different people in different ways, and still move the world forward. So when the game paused, the lights dimmed, and the jerseys were set aside, they didn't stop being leaders. They simply became leaders in new ways. Every era in basketball is marked by those who rise above the game, who shift the course of the sport, who redefine its essence, and who leave echoes long after the final buzzer. By the mid-2020s, it was undeniable. Stephen Curry and LeBron James weren't just part of NBA history. They were NBA history. Their names were etched beside giants like Jordan, Magic, Bird, and Kobe, not as imitators but as innovators. What they brought to the court didn't just dominate their time, it reshaped the times to come. LeBron's legacy was built like a monument, large, deliberate, immovable. His impact was felt in how modern players viewed their roles, as leaders, creators, and change agents. His physical style, court vision, and mental approach set a new template for the all-around superstar. You weren't just expected to score, you were expected to make everyone around you better, to know every position, every play, every outcome before it happened. And Curry, his legacy was like a ripple across a still lake. One deep three-pointer at a time, he expanded what was possible. Young players who once practiced free throws and layups were now pulling up from 30 feet, because Steph made the unthinkable normal. His influence wasn't just technical, it was psychological. He broke the limits of imagination. Their legacies echoed not only in highlight reels or jersey sales, but in the DNA of the next generation. Players like Trae Young, Ja Morant, Luka Doncic, and Jason Tatum carried fragments of both icons. Some mimicked Curry's off-ball movement, others embraced LeBron's leadership by example. And even beyond the NBA, in gyms across the world, kids practiced fadeaways and crossovers, imagining themselves in finals moments molded by Curry's precision or LeBron's will. What made their legacies even more profound was how they aged with grace. Neither man clung desperately to the spotlight. Instead, they evolved, adapting their games, mentoring younger stars and finding meaning beyond the numbers. It was no longer about proving something. It was about leaving something behind. And both understood that legacy isn't just defined by what you achieve, but by who you empower. Coaches adapted. Front offices changed their philosophies. The NBA itself adjusted rules, pace, and expectations in response to what these two had brought into being. Curry stretched the floor, literally and strategically. LeBron expanded the scope of what one player could mean to a franchise, to a city, to a culture. There was no final competition to determine who was greater. The question over time became irrelevant. Because both were great, in ways too different to measure on the same scale. Their echoes became timeless. They rang through arenas, whispered in draft rooms, and pulsed through every new highlight. Like the sound of a ball bouncing in an empty gym, their presence remained even in absence. In the end, the legacy they shared was not rivalry. It was revolution. When the news finally broke, it landed like a quiet tremor through the league, not violent or loud but undeniably powerful. LeBron James had announced that the coming season would be his last. After more than 2 decades of defining the NBA's pulse, he was preparing to step away. For fans, it was surreal. For younger players, it was the end of the only NBA they'd ever known. And for Stephen Curry, it was something more intimate. A farewell not just to a rival but to a chapter of his own life. Curry found out like most people, through a headline followed by a flurry of texts and breaking news alerts. But the moment froze him. He sat in silence, staring at the screen, not out of surprise. He had sensed it coming, but because the reality hit harder than expected. He had played against LeBron for over a decade, faced him on the biggest stages, studied his every move, and shared moments that will live on in league lore. And now that presence, that constant, would soon vanish from the court. The weight of it wasn't in the wins or losses. It was in the ritual of the rivalry. The way preparing to face LeBron brought out something deeper in him. The way those games carried an extra charge, an added layer of meaning. They weren't just battles, they were tests of legacy. For Curry, LeBron was never just an opponent. He was the mirror that reflected Curry's own evolution. In LeBron's dominance, Curry found urgency. In LeBron's consistency, Curry discovered focus. In LeBron's greatness, Curry saw his own ceiling, and his motivation to break through it. Now, with the end in sight, Curry felt an unfamiliar emptiness. He remembered their first true duel, the finals in 2015, and the buzz around the league. He remembered how it felt to be the challenger, the upstart facing the king. Then came the role reversal. In later years, as the Warriors dominated, LeBron became the lone warrior, the one trying to dethrone them. Their arcs wove around each other, crossing at the exact moments when both were at their best. And now, one of those arcs was drawing to a close. There was also a personal sense of passage. With LeBron retiring, Curry was suddenly the elder statesman. The last superstar standing from a defining generation. The thought carried weight. It meant more responsibility, not just as a player but as a steward of the game. Curry knew what would come. The farewell tour, the tributes, the final matchups. He would face LeBron one more time, and the cameras would zoom in, and every handshake, every glance would be dissected. But he also knew there would be moments away from the spotlight, small, quiet ones, when the magnitude of it would truly land. Like walking into an arena where LeBron once roared and feeling silence. Like seeing his jersey retired. Like watching young players imitate him not as a peer but as a memory. Curry wasn't ready to say goodbye, not really. But he respected it. He understood it. Because one day he would face the same decision. And when that day came, he hoped it would be with the same grace, the same poise, and the same legacy of impact. Until then, he would savor every game left. Every moment. Every echo of a rivalry that made him who he was. Because farewell isn't just the end of someone else's story. Sometimes it's the beginning of your own final act. The schedule had circled that date in red long before it arrived. Warriors versus Lakers late in the season, the last time LeBron James and Stephen Curry would face each other on an NBA court. It wasn't just a regular season matchup. It was history unfolding in real time. A closing chapter. A final stanza in a decade-long symphony. The buzz in the arena was electric but reverent. Fans knew they were witnessing more than a game. This was a ceremony in motion, one not announced but deeply understood. Two titans nearing the end of one's journey, sharing the stage not as enemies, but as co-authors of something bigger than either of them. From the opening tip, there was energy in every movement. Curry hit an early three, a classic no-look, deep-range dagger that sent the crowd into a frenzy. LeBron answered with a downhill drive, part freight train, part ballet. Their exchanges weren't just about scoring anymore. They were about acknowledgement. About the joy of competing one last time. They guarded each other at times, just for a few possessions. Enough to make the crowd stand. Enough to remind everyone, this rivalry was built not on malice, but on mutual excellence. On the sidelines, coaches gave them space. Teammates cleared paths. There was an unspoken agreement: let the moment breathe. Let the Giants dance. At one point, midway through the third quarter, Curry hit a step-back three and LeBron smiled. A genuine, open smile tinged with recognition and maybe a little nostalgia. Curry grinned back. They had done this too many times to count, but this one felt different. There were no outbursts, no trash talk. Just a deep, unspoken understanding. We made this. This era, this style of play, this intensity, it bore their fingerprints. Late in the fourth, the game was tight. Classic Curry, weaving through screens, draining shots from impossible angles. Classic LeBron, commanding the floor, orchestrating with power and poise. But the final score would not matter much to anyone watching. This was about presence, about gratitude. When the final buzzer sounded, the real moment began. They met at midcourt, no cameras needed, though hundreds swarmed. They embraced. A long, lingering hug. Words were exchanged, too low for microphones to catch. But it didn't matter. You could feel the weight of it. A career's worth of battles condensed into one gesture. For Curry, it was a farewell to a constant, a figure who had been there in every defining moment of his prime. For LeBron, it was a goodbye to a rival who had never let him rest, who pushed him without malice, who stood tall without ever needing to shout. After the game, both men spoke to the press. Curry, reflective as always, called it an honor of a lifetime to share the court with LeBron. LeBron, equally gracious, called Curry the most unique player the game has ever seen. Their words weren't rehearsed. They were real. They were earned. That night, as fans filed out of the arena, they weren't just remembering shots or stats. They were remembering a feeling. The feeling of witnessing two artists painting with movement, rhythm, and fire, one last time on the same canvas. Because sometimes the greatest rivalries don't end in bitterness. Sometimes they end in respect, and in a memory that will never fade. When LeBron James officially stepped away, the NBA didn't lose just a player, it lost a pillar. The league had been shaped by his gravity for more than 2 decades. His presence was a constant, on highlight reels, in locker room conversations, in the minds of defenders and aspiring stars alike. For Stephen Curry, the absence was both distant and deeply personal. There was a strange quiet the first night LeBron wasn't in the league. Not literal silence. The arenas were still filled, the crowd still roared, but there was a subtle shift in the air. The rhythm felt off. Something foundational was missing. Curry noticed it first during warm-ups. No buzz about where LeBron was playing that night. No hype graphics comparing stats. No game planning centered around containing the king. And as strange as it sounded, he missed it. He missed the weight of those matchups. He missed the pressure of trying to outdo the man who had become both his foil and his fuel. Most of all, he missed the feeling of being tested by someone who understood what greatness cost, and who demanded it of you every time you met. Without LeBron, the league still had stars, brilliant ones. But Curry knew there was no replicating him. He wasn't just a player. He was a force, a presence, a figure who altered legacies by simply stepping on the floor. The space he left behind wasn't just statistical. It was emotional, cultural, generational. For years, Curry had been the heir to the new school, the revolution in spacing, speed, and long-range shooting. LeBron had been the bridge, linking eras, combining old-school dominance with new-school savvy. Together, they had given fans a kind of balance, power and finesse, brain and instinct, gravity and lift. And now, Curry stood alone at the top of the mountain they had once shared. He began to think more deeply about his own career, its timeline, its twilight. Not because he felt done, but because he understood, perhaps more than ever, that greatness has a window. And no matter how open it feels, it eventually narrows. LeBron had prepared for his exit with care. He had mentored. He had built. He had passed the torch not with fanfare, but with intention. Curry admired that. And it reminded him that legacies aren't sealed with trophies, they're sealed with impact. So Curry began to lean further into his role as mentor, model, and guardian of the game. He offered advice more freely. He embraced younger players more intentionally. He became the voice of experience just as LeBron had been. Yet privately, in the quieter moments, the absence still echoed. He would watch a replay of an old finals game and see LeBron barreling down the lane. He would smile at a clip of them exchanging laughs during All-Star Weekend. He would hear a reporter ask about that era, and realize they were talking about his prime, past tense. That space LeBron left behind? Curry filled parts of it, surely. But he never tried to replace him. Because some spaces aren't meant to be filled. They're meant to be respected. To be remembered. To remind us that what we witnessed wasn't just basketball, it was legacy in motion. And now that legacy lived in the empty spots. The silent moments. The pause before the next generation spoke. With LeBron James retired, the NBA found itself at a crossroads. Yet, the echoes of his greatness didn't fade. Instead, they set the stage for a new chapter. One where legacy is not static but dynamic, evolving with every pass, every shot, and every leadership moment. For Stephen Curry, the responsibility felt tangible. He wasn't just carrying his own story forward anymore. He was a custodian of a shared history, a living link between what was and what could be. Curry's style, relentlessly innovative, fearless, and graceful, continued to shape the game, but now with a heightened awareness of the example LeBron had set. Beyond scoring and championships, it was about how to use influence wisely. How to elevate others without overshadowing them. How to balance excellence with empathy. He mentored young players with patience, recalling how LeBron had extended a guiding hand during his own early years. He used his platform to speak on issues LeBron had championed: education, equality, and empowerment. Through his media ventures, he created spaces for unheard voices, continuing the mission of storytelling and representation that LeBron had embraced. The NBA itself evolved, inspired by the pathways these two icons forged. Rules adapted to favor skill and pace, arenas embraced technology and fan engagement like never before, and players began to see themselves not just as athletes, but as entrepreneurs, activists, and leaders. But legacy is never just about the past, it's about momentum. Curry embodied this. Every game, every practice, every interview was a chance to propel the sport forward while honoring the journey that brought it here. The young stars who looked up to both LeBron and Curry understood this implicitly. They didn't just want to replicate their stats, they wanted to emulate their impact, their approach to the game, their commitment to community. In this way, LeBron's legacy lived not only in memories but in action, carried on by Curry and those inspired by both men. For Curry, it was clear, the story wasn't finished. It was moving, growing, breathing. And with every step, he was determined to make it meaningful. Because legacy, at its core, is not a moment frozen in time. It's a journey in motion. The day finally came when the spotlight shifted fully onto Stephen Curry. With LeBron James having stepped away, the NBA looked to its new standard bearer, a player who had grown in skill, wisdom, and leadership alongside the King's reign. For Curry, this moment was both an honor and a responsibility. It wasn't about replacing LeBron, no one could, but about carrying forward the values and vision that defined their era. The torch he now held was heavy, glowing with the fire of decades of hard work, triumph, and transformation. In interviews, Curry spoke humbly about the legacy he inherited. He acknowledged LeBron's monumental influence, not just as a competitor but as a mentor and a trailblazer who expanded what an athlete could be. Curry described how watching LeBron balance athleticism with activism inspired him to use his own platform to foster change beyond the court. But this torch was also a call to innovate. Curry had always been a pioneer, the man who revolutionized the three-point shot and brought a new rhythm to the game. Now, as the elder statesman of the league, he embraced the role of guiding the next generation toward a future that balanced respect for tradition with bold experimentation. He worked closely with rising stars, sharing insights on handling pressure, maintaining humility, and finding purpose in every dribble. Off the court, he deepened his philanthropic efforts, focusing on education, social justice, and youth empowerment, causes close to both his and LeBron's hearts. Curry's leadership was defined by collaboration and inclusion. He encouraged dialogue among players, coaches, and fans, believing that the game's growth depended on diverse voices coming together. The era of rivalry gave way to an era of unity and collective ambition. As he walked into arenas, wearing the mantle of a leader, Curry felt the presence of those who came before him, LeBron most prominently. Their journeys intertwined, their legacies overlapping like threads in a tapestry woven with respect, challenge, and inspiration. In embracing the torch, Curry was not just continuing a story, he was shaping a new chapter. One where greatness was measured not only in points or trophies but in character, impact, and the ability to uplift others. The NBA's future was bright, lit by the flames of past legends and the spark of those ready to ignite what comes next. Stephen Curry stood ready, torch in hand, poised to lead the way. With the torch firmly in his grasp, Stephen Curry's journey extended far beyond the hardwood. The basketball court had been the stage where legends were born and legacies forged, but Curry understood that true greatness transcended points, assists, and championships. It lived in influence, in character, and in the power to inspire change. In the years following LeBron James's retirement, Curry found himself stepping into roles he had only glimpsed before: mentor, ambassador, entrepreneur, and advocate. Each role was an extension of the lessons learned from competing alongside and against LeBron, a testament to the depth of his growth. He deepened his commitment to philanthropy, focusing on education initiatives in underserved communities. Drawing from his own background and the example LeBron set with his own foundation, Curry sought to open doors for young people, believing that opportunity was the true game changer. Beyond charity, Curry embraced entrepreneurship, investing in technology startups, media ventures, and sports development programs. He saw these ventures not merely as business but as platforms to amplify voices and ideas often overlooked. Curry also became a prominent advocate for mental health awareness among athletes, candidly sharing his own struggles and emphasizing the importance of support systems. He worked with the NBA and players' associations to create safer, more understanding environments for players to thrive both on and off the court. On the global stage, Curry represented the NBA's evolving identity: diverse, socially conscious, and innovative. He used his influence to champion equality, environmental sustainability, and youth empowerment worldwide. Yet, despite the growing spotlight on his off-court endeavors, Curry remained grounded. He often reflected on the journey that brought him here, from a shy kid with an unorthodox shooting style to a two-time MVP and NBA champion carrying the league's mantle. The lessons from competing with LeBron were clear. Greatness wasn't a solo pursuit, it was a shared responsibility. It was about lifting others, using privilege wisely, and recognizing that the game was bigger than any one player. Curry's story continued to evolve, shaped by every decision, every partnership, and every moment of leadership beyond the game. The torch was more than a symbol, it was a mission. As he looked to the future, Stephen Curry wasn't just thinking about the next season or the next championship. He was envisioning a legacy that would inspire generations to come, a legacy defined by impact, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of progress. And in that pursuit, the light of one era passed seamlessly into the promise of the next. As the years unfold, Stephen Curry often finds himself reflecting on the path that brought him here. From his early days as a determined underdog to becoming the face of the NBA's new era, the journey has been one of growth, challenge, and inspiration. Yet, at its core, the story is about connection, between past and present, between rivals and allies, between legacy and future. LeBron James's retirement was more than an end. It was a pivotal moment that allowed Curry to fully embrace his role as a leader, not just on the court, but within the global basketball community. The lessons learned from competing alongside one of the greatest players ever. His fierce drive, his commitment to social change, his unwavering professionalism, have shaped Curry's approach to both basketball and life. Curry understands that legacy isn't static. It's a living, breathing force shaped by action and intention. It's about how one elevates others, how one responds to adversity, and how one uses their platform for greater good. The torch passed from LeBron to Curry is not a burden but a beacon. It illuminates the way forward, reminding him of the responsibility he carries to honor the game's history while pioneering its future. This full-circle moment is also a beginning. Curry sees young players stepping onto the court with fresh energy and dreams. He remembers his own early days, the mentors who believed in him, and the rivalries that pushed him to be better. Now he embraces the role of mentor and guide, ready to nurture the next generation. Beyond the bright lights and roaring crowds, Curry's focus remains steadfast, to leave the game better than he found it. To inspire not only through dazzling plays but through character, compassion, and vision. As he prepares for the seasons ahead, Stephen Curry carries with him the echoes of battles fought, the wisdom of a shared journey with LeBron James, and the hope for what lies ahead. The journey continues, full circle yet ever forward.